murder that one. Talking all that bullshit. I'ma put it to you like this, yo.
This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me. I bet you wish you was me, I know that I know.
What is poppin', everybody? And welcome back to another special episode of the Only Friends podcast. Well, you know, it's me and my only friends, which includes, but is not limited to, my boy, Hunt. What's poppin', baby?
I'm doing well, Conrad. I'm in the captain's chair today. I'm enjoying it.
Well, you see, here's the thing. I don't know whoever told you that captain thing, but, you know, this is the captain's chair. That's why Berkey's been sitting in my chair when I haven't been here, which got me thinking, I gotta clean this shit up. He's been here like a month, dude. This shit is crazy. Fucking germs everywhere, Berkey shit.
There are pita chips over there.
I don't think those are
Pita
germs. I think
chips,
those are
crumbs
pita
everywhere.
chips.
Look, it kills 99% of germs, so we're gonna be clear.
We're sponsored by Windex,
Yeah,
though?
that's
that
the
0.1%.
next sponsorship.
So what's poppin', guys? How we feeling today?
We're good.
I think we're doing good. I think we're doing better than Berkey from the sounds of his Twitter.
Yeah.
Whoa, ooh,
I don't know what he ate last night,
yeah.
but he looks
I don't
like
know,
he's
man. I
having
just
some
saw Berkey put up a tweet. It seems kind of rough at the playground.
I actually can see all the notifications rolling in on his Twitter right here.
Hunt, I can't
Because
believe
it's
you.
open.
Did you take over his Twitter?
I did not. That was not
this-
me.
this
This is
How
not me.
awful. I mean, you're the only one
Absolutely not
sitting
me.
in that chair.
Quite
so-
honestly, this
I
seems
mean,
pretty sincere.
The evidence would lead to me, but I think I'm the most trustworthy of this group. So
I
I
think
think you
so.
can
I
rely
think
on me
so.
when I
I'm
say it
pretty
was
sure
not
he
me.
just shit himself and he's at the playground.
All right.
He's on the playground. He's probably on the slide or something.
Yep.
So every time he sits down, the shit just goes back up.
Let's hope he's not on the merry-go-round, because once you get that centrifugal force, that shit's gonna
man.
fly.
Everybody, please, go reach out to Berkey. Give him a little love on his recent posts.
He
Like
hates us so bad right now.
It's so great,
But
honestly.
he's in another country. He can't do shit about it.
It's true. It's true. You know.
I'm literally just watching notifications just roll in on his Twitter. I've never done this with someone else's Twitter.
Can you
before.
read a few of them?
You can all go on his Twitter and read them. I'm not going to ruin the podcast by reading these things out.
If you guys want to know where to reach Matt,
Berkey's up at playground. He's playing a meetup game today. Apparently, he's smashing it already. He had like 3K in front of him.
He probably brought in for 5.
Landon's fucking smiling because he has 5% somehow.
No.
This shit's absurd.
Landon has 5% of Berkey in a 1-3 game.
Anything. He just has it. He just has the 5%. He just sits around and smiles all day.
No, I just saw that he's running good in the meetup game where he can't do that at Bobby's, so it's kind of
Oh,
brutal.
yeah. I mean, he would probably much prefer to be running good at 100, 300 instead of $1, $3.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
gotta add a
rough.
couple zeros.
Speaking of 1-3, Guapo.
Oh,
2-3.
2-3. Sorry,
There's
yes.
$5 in the
what's
middle.
poppin',
Yeah.
Guap? You in the streets?
I'm officially in the 2-3
Let's
states.
go. I was so
Yes.
happy.
The man has moved up. New year, new you.
Yeah, the game isn't that different from 1-2 guys. I'm shocker.
I mean,
still a lot of limping.
yeah, but there's more action, right?
Yeah, definitely more action.
Way
So
more
you can
action,
win-
and
you can win
it's a
more,
lot
you can lose
deeper.
more.
There's a lot deeper.
I broke about even for my first sesh. Got to wear my new Triton gear.
Okay.
Yeah, it must feel pretty good showing up at a 2-3 game wearing a Triton
Yeah.
jacket.
If anyone asks, I'm just
Triton
trying to clear a prop bet. You know what I mean? I have to win X amount of money at these stakes because normally I play like 50-100. So
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say the prop bet was you have to wear a Triton jacket every day because the last time I saw you were also wearing Triton clothing.
don't call me out, man. I don't have a lot of clothes.
Hey,
Wait,
if
was
I
it
got free clothing, I would just wear it every day too. So.
All right, fair.
It's going to
I'm
be
not
tough
gonna
to go
complain.
back down to 1-2, right? You
as
like
long as I
almost
don't
never want to play?
As long as I run well.
Yeah.
So what you gotta do, man, is just run well. And then
That's the
you'll be
secret.
playing 100, 200 next year.
Yeah.
That is the secret.
Did you
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe I'm gonna run it up like this guy. Who's this gentleman? Went from 100 to 100K.
That's impressive.
Well, it's this gentleman, we'll call him for now. So yeah, basically there was this guy that started a bankroll challenge last year with $100, won a couple tournaments by like, I don't know, his first month, like online, little bangers. Had it up to like 1,300, and somehow he found himself playing 1-3, 2-5, and until he just hit the moon.
Yeah.
He has ran it up to 100K.
Bluffalo Sam. I almost said Buffalo Sam. But
Buffalo, yes.
Bluffalo Sam.
like that.
I like that. That's good. Okay.
Wow.
That's great. I mean, honestly, those bankroll challenges are tough. Like I think the motivation at the beginning to play super low stakes and just like be able to stick with it until you've really grown that bankroll, like that's impressive. So shout out to that guy.
I mean, that's got to be a lot of work, man. Like that's got to be hard.
Hard work these days. Especially, was it all online or did he do some live as
No.
well?
So what he did was he started playing online, just like small tournaments, and then I think he got up to like 1,300. Started playing 1-3, got it up to like 4,100. Then took a shot at 2-5, lost 3,100 or something like that. So he had 900, I believe it was.
Oh, brutal.
Or something like that. So he lost a bunch at 2-5, went down to 900, and then I forgot. I think it was grinded 1-3 back to 10,500 or something along those lines. And then he just started playing more live cash, a little bit bigger, and smashed.
Wow.
Started getting into the live stream streets, and yeah.
Well, shout out to him.
So,
These vloggers, man.
that's pretty dope. That's got to be.
They're crushing.
We won't see that too much ever.
No, except in crypto.
Yes, in crypto.
Is it like
And that's not even
It's the
anymore.
only way you can 1000x, you
crypto
know?
bankroll challenge? Like that's
Yeah.
a fun one.
I tried to do this
You
once.
tried that? What, the crypto challenge or just the regular
R.I.P. to
bankroll?
It's a metaverse.
It's just the life roll
Metaverse
challenge.
was last cycle, bro. We're
Oh,
we're
wow.
on to
Visa
AI
metaverse.
now, and yeah.
I wonder if Honey even knows about this.
The metaverse?
The Visa metaverse.
Game 5.
All right, so one day it was like the academy, and it was like morning before. Had like I don't know. I think I put like 2,700 into this ICO or whatever the hell you want to call them. Was it ICO at this time? I think they were
Initial
called.
coin
Yeah.
offering, I guess.
Yeah, I think it was an ICO, and it was called Visa Metaverse.
Okay.
And I put 2,500 into it or something along those lines. And by
This is gonna end bad. I just
this was at like 9 a.m. By 4 a.m., I think I had like
I mean, 4 p.m.
300,000 or 4 p.m. I had like 300,000, and at that moment, I knew it was a fucking scam.
Try to cash out. You can't sell it.
Couldn't sell it. It was a honeypot, and they got me.
Yeah.
They got my ass.
No wonder
you.
it just went straight to the moon. You couldn't sell.
But,
So you can
but
buy it.
let me tell you something. The joke's kind of worth 2,500. I mean, we have a
I mean,
lifelong joke here.
It's a pretty good joke. That is a pretty good joke. I'm just looking at more notifications. Melissa is denying her involvement in this, so the evidence the evidence is going to mount as to who did this, and it wasn't me. So I'm not going to accuse anybody.
OG has responded. He says, "I have adult diapers. Meet in the slots area. So get on over to the slot area. You got some adult diapers waiting for you there. Extra medium, and you'll be set." What's popping today? What are we doing today? We talking a little strat chat today?
Yeah, we got a little bit of strat chat. We've got a hand from our Discord where I think the hand itself was pretty well played, but it would be a really good hand to introduce some discussion about, I guess, the concept of flop bet sizings, because I think it was an interesting spot on Discord that a lot of people were involved in the discussion. So it'd be fun to talk about it.
Sweet. But you actually have a strategy video that just came out.
I do, yeah. I had a course that just came out called Breaking Down the World Championship. So I took a 5-part look at the recent WPT World Championship final table, doing a lot of ICM sims, pre and post flop, looking at how these 6 sickos managed to final table this event and breaking down some of the most important hands. So it was a fun one.
Yeah, let's take a look at the video.
This series is going to be a full review of the recent WPT 10K World Championship event that just happened at the Wynn here in Vegas. We're just going to dive right in and start off with 6-handed play, because a lot of the really interesting hands took place in that portion of the event. And then we're going to have some really fascinating hands in 3-handed and heads-up play. So we had 6 elite level players, and obviously a really good opportunity to see what these players do in a high pressure, very big money situation. And there you have it. That's the course. Breaking down the World Championship. It was a lot of interesting hands, particularly once you get down to heads up and 3-handed play. There was a lot of spots where some of the ICM outputs and things for the Sims were a little bit different to what I expected. So it was a fun one to make.
I must say, like, this is one tournament. There was not like any lack of boring hands. Like, it was kind of absurd. Like, there was just so many like good, well played hands. Yeah, or just
Yeah, a
spots
lot of
in
good
general.
spots. Yeah, there was a couple of spots that I think everybody was talking about afterwards, and it was obviously the big ace king to pocket jacks hand where Chewy busted in third. That was one that everybody was talking about, but the irony was that was like pretty standard.
Right.
And then the hands that people were kind of missing a little bit, a lot of those were some of the outputs that gave me a little bit of a surprise in terms of what the Sims were saying and how ICM was affecting things. So yeah, really interesting course to make, and I hope everybody enjoys it.
Yeah, go to solvefory.io and sign up for the All-In Access Pass, and you can watch that course.
Yeah.
You're also heading up a tournament academy coming up in May.
That is
aren't
correct.
you?
Yeah, in
That
May,
is
right before the World Series, we have the Tournament Academy, which is a 4-day extravaganza, I guess. And I think that
Festival.
It is a 4-day
a
festival, if you
of
will.
tournament studying.
Oh, yes, it is great.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I guess in this current form, it's kind of my baby or brainchild, so to speak, since I basically put all the content together. But it's
You got a little bit of new stuff from last year?
yeah, I think there will be. There's going to be some stuff that's updated. So anyone who came last year will probably get at least a little bit of new material because the technology we have to explore certain things changes all the time. So
Software update.
Yep, software, a little bit of a software update. And it's possible that GTO Wizard will actually have post-flop ICM by the time the MTT Academy happens, because they are apparently looking at that in the next couple of months. That's what I've heard. So that should be fun to incorporate as well if we get the opportunity.
Love it. I believe it's May 24th to the 27th. That is a Tournament Academy. We got a Cash Game Academy also coming up. That is in March 18th to the 20th. And we also have another Cash Academy in May right before the Tournament Academy.
So we have a whole week of academies.
Yeah, head over to academy.solvefory.io for more information.
Gentlemen, we have a new competitor in the academy space.
Oh, boy.
I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but it's a little scary.
Talk to me.
Okay, Victor Lee.
Oh, PokerGPT.
Oh, shit.
Okay. Yeah, I have heard a little bit about this, or someone gave me a link to something like this a few weeks back, and I don't know if it's exactly the same thing. I don't know if it's literally the same guy or it's the same product, but
Sure.
it was a GPT that was built on or trained on poker strategy. And I think that as a first iteration of something like this, as like this is the first one that we've seen, it's not bad. But the advice is still relatively rudimentary, and it's not able to really give like very complex solver insight. But I would think
So this is more like on the macro.
yeah, I think so. And
What are we we're looking at? An AI generated.
I think you can actually input hands and it'll kind of tell you like what your leaks are.
Yeah, it's a GPT that you can basically ask it a question like, did I play this hand well? And it'll tell you. And it won't give you necessarily like theoretically optimal responses or anything like that, but it'll kind of give you very generic sort of answers. And I would imagine that over time it's going to get better, especially if some entity that has access to a whole solver archive decides to buy it and just
Guapo,
add it.
can you plug in what you should do with pocket nines on an ace?
Don't. Let's not.
He's like the one big blind.
Just
Let's not.
Oh, man.
Ask PokerGPT what to do. I'm being distracted over here because one of those in Berkey's replies, one of those porn bots has shown up. So I immediately looked over and it was like content warning, nudity. I was like, okay, that's a weirdly distracting thing to look at. But yeah, Berkey's gonna have some fun getting rid of those bots on his Twitter, I guess.
I mean, that's kind of interesting to see a PokerGPT chat thing. Like, I wonder how good it works. Like,
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, it's only going to get better.
Yeah, this is the thing.
That's
like,
the scary part.
This is the direction that poker training has been heading in the sense that as soon as AI language, like what do they call them, LLMs, large language models, or whatever it is, became capable of like communicating with humans the way ChatGPT does. Eventually, it was going to be the case that somebody would take a solver and a LLM and just blend them together so that the solver can explain the solver can explain to you why it's doing what it's doing. And chess already has this. Chess already has learning tools that you can make a move and it will tell you why your move is the right move. So obviously we're definitely heading in this direction for poker. Kind of exciting, but it's also a bit scary, obviously.
I don't think it matters that much, man. People aren't going to listen to it.
Exactly.
They might not listen.
Solvers came out and people were like, oh, poker's dead. Then you know what? Like, how many people actually run solves?
But this is very different. They're getting immediate answers. So it's kind of like
it makes it more convenient.
Yes.
And it makes it more like accessible and that kind of stuff.
When you get in, people want immediate answers.
Right.
Like, if I have
it's
a
lot
question-
easier to just say, did I play this hand correctly, than to run a solve.
Whether or not they apply it, like Landon's about to say.
No, but the solver just hasn't played their specific 2-5 game, you know?
Oh, that's true. You have a very good point there, Landon.
Right.
They just don't know their player type.
Nobody's ever been to my 25-cent, 50-cent game. No way a solver beats it.
No.
There was a comment on our YouTube after we did the last or one of the episodes where we talked about GTO and like why people think GTO doesn't work. Where someone was like, it's called theory because it hasn't been proven yet. And I was like,
oh no.
Okay, I guess that means we're just going to ignore all of poker theory then.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
that's
how it
gravity
works.
is a theory.
Yeah, the theory of relativity. You know, like it's a theory, it's not been proven. Like, okay, fair enough.
So, guys, one of our group chats are going off right now, and there's a little bit of a discussion of who wrote Berkey's recent tweet.
Okay.
No, I didn't tell anybody yet, but I did ask the people to, vote on the poll.
Okay.
Of who it's going to be.
Okay.
Right now, Landon is leading.
What are the
38%? 38% and 21 votes.
I would never.
What are the options? All of us in the room?
Everybody but Hunt, because he already said he didn't do it.
Okay.
There we go.
Am I supposed to state a claim as to why I didn't do it?
No claims.
No claims.
No claims. We just watch the people.
Do not
vote.
influence the vote.
Yeah, we don't influence the vote.
All right.
That's like the dealer
Fam.
influencing the action. Fam.
And besides, I didn't do it because if I did
was
it,
a
it would be
clue.
very grammatically correct. Like I wouldn't be able to bring myself to deliberately write a non-grammatically correct tweet. So that's how you know I didn't do it.
Yeah, we know it definitely wasn't Hunt in every aspect of this. All right. So who's in the muck?
Who's in the muck?
That's the question.
It is one of our Discord users whose name I've forgotten their name. I'm sorry.
Oh my God, you're
I'm
pulling a
sorry to
Berkey.
our Discord user.
You're
Yeah,
pulling up Berkey.
I know. I'm in the captain's chair and I'm taking on his traits.
Again. That's not the captain. That is the sidekick chair.
Okay, sidekick chair.
I am the
Yes.
captain now.
What is
at
that
me.
from?
It's from Captain Phillips.
Captain Phillips, the movie. Yeah.
Okay, I've never seen it.
Tom Hanks movie. Yeah.
Okay.
Good movie. But anyway, we have a hand where the player was a little bit sort of in the muck about the flop sizing. So they open.
So this was online, right?
This was online.
It says 510 here, but it's actually micro stakes.
Yes,
so like
it's
maybe like 5 cents,
5 cent, 10 cent, basically, I think. So online micros. So it falls them in the cutoff 6-handed. They open king, queen of diamonds, 2.2, very standard. Big blind calls, and we get a flop of ace, queen, deuce, 2 hearts. And our hero here is going to go ahead and check, but they explained on Discord that they would have a bet 75 sizing here on this flop.
Because this is a big bet board, right?
Well, let's talk a little bit about that and about why that might be the case. I think tendency that some people have is to not necessarily recognize which boards fall into big bet boards and which boards fall into small bet. And I think the bet 75 size on this board is pretty reasonable if that's what you're going to go with. But I also think that the construction that the person outlined on Discord that they would have had is not quite what you want to have when you're going with this sort of a size. So one of the issues that they had is they explained that they would mostly be betting pretty much 2-pair plus and sets and things like that for value, and then some bluffs as well. But the issue is that a bet 75 size is not actually that big here.
Right.
So if you are betting 75%, you definitely have to go a lot wider for value than something like a 2-pair hand. You can't be like checking ace king if your sizing here is 75%. And we can kind of show what that looks like if we switch over to wizard, because I have wizard right here. So do you want to do that? You want to show us the wizard?
Do we want to run the whole hand out first, or how do you want to do it?
We'll do the whole hand at the end, because
Okay.
the hand ends with hero checking the flop and then making 2-pair. And it's like the turn and river are not super important here, but the flop and the sizing is pretty interesting. So what I've done is I've run this exact spot on wizard with the rake, kind of in the right territory, low stakes rake. And
Can I say what my thought is, like my
Sure,
initial
of course.
thought?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I see the hand, and I recognize that's a big bet board, which is like overbet, right? So an overbet board, which means you're gonna have it's gonna be a low frequency bet. So I would think a hand like King Queen would probably fall into the check category.
Yeah, I think King Queen. This is the interesting part about it. That King Queen is the kind of hand that mostly is going to want to fall into a check if you're using a really big bet size in that case. But I think when we look at the 75% size here, this is the sim that we've got for this particular size. When I just let Wizard use this specific size, we can quite easily see that the value bet region, if I highlight, let's say, best hands and good hands, because this is how we get a good sense of what the value bets are. You've got a lot of hands in there that are value betting that are a lot weaker than 2-pair, right? Ace King is like pure bet basically, except for specifically if you have the King of Hearts, it wants to check a bit more. And then we've got a lot of this Ace 10, Ace Jack stuff is betting, even like Ace 5 off down here, Ace 5 off, no heart is betting at a decent rate. So you just can go a lot wider than the 2-pair plus kind of region for value here if you're using the B75 size.
I have a question, Matt.
Yeah.
So it looks like King Queen off is basically just a check all the way through.
Yep.
On the King Queen suiteds, can you show what suit likes to have a big bet?
Yes. So King Queen suited is going to be the clubs.
Yeah, the back door.
Okay. Can you explain why that is?
Yeah.
Because
So
if
you look at the blocking properties of this hand, right? So take a look at King Queen of Spades. We have a 2 for value removal and a 4 for trash removal. King Queen of Diamonds, 2 and a 4. King Queen of Clubs, 3 and a 4, right? So because of the presence of the club on board and just the various card removal factors that are involved with having specifically King Queen of Clubs in this spot, we actually have, I would guess, a fair amount more equity, and it starts to perform slightly better as a bet because of that additional tiny amount of blocking power over villain's value.
But isn't it also that you have a backdoor club draw?
That's obviously a big part of it as well.
Yeah.
But if you want to look at the defining factor here in terms of why this hand might be able to get more value, it's because of that additional blocking power that it has, where like something like Queen Deuce is going to not be part of villain's range now as often because the Deuce of Clubs is out there as well. And so you've got a little variation there. If we look at the equity of the hands here, we've got, like, take a look at this, right? We've got the extra 1.7% equity, which is obviously going to matter quite a bit. And then if we look at equity realization, we've got with the King Queen of Clubs, it's way better, right? So 74.1% realization, and then 82.5%, right? Okay. So King Queen of Clubs just realizes its equity so much better. It has that additional blocking power over the value region, and it obviously has the backdoor, so you have some implied odds when you do make the backdoor. So there's a few different things going on there.
It just allows you to bet a lot of turns when the club comes.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You're going to be able to go for slightly thinner value, and you're also just going to have much more power to bluff catch in certain instances as well, where you're going to be unblocking like a lot of the hearts and things like that. So there's a bunch of different factors contributing, but for the most part, King Queen with the backdoor is going to be pretty powerful. And if you look at the King Queen offsuit combos, there are a few that are mixing the bet here as well. And
it's very small. Yeah.
It is very small, and you can see that having the Queen of Clubs is quite meaningful, right? So like two of the combos, or the two combos that are mixing bets the most, specifically have the Queen of Clubs, and then the other ones are the ones that unblock like all of the backdoors that can sometimes get floated here. But the ones that have like a heart in them, King Queen with a heart, for example, is pure check in most cases. So there's going to be just a lot of minor card removal stuff that's going on here. But I think the general kind of idea here is that when you're going with these big bet sizes on these boards, you do have to be mindful that 76% in this case of pot, which is, it's just rounded up a little bit, it's just not that big of a bet, right? Like it's a catch-all sort of a size. It's not a particularly polarizing size. Now, if I reset the sim here, I'm not sure if it's actually going to just immediately reset the sizing or if I'm going to have to rerun the sim altogether. Yeah, it's going to rerun it with 76%. But when I first ran this sim, if I just rerun it here, it gave me a full pot size. So that was the size that it likes here. So this is where we're going. And you can see that the single size that it chooses is a little bit bigger than that 75. You know, we've got this full pot. We're not quite going to the region of overbets, but we are in a territory where we can value bet with actually, let's get rid of those good hands because that's some of the draws as well. But this value bet region is showing us a lot. We've got ace deuce, obviously. We've got ace five.
Aces.
What's that? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yep.
We've got ace five of clubs is in there. Ace eight without a backdoor. So that's stuff that just unblocks all the draws. And then we've got some of the ace jack plus, like basically most of the ace jack suited plus, not all the ace jack offsuit, but basically like you kind of just have to at least be pretty happy to go for a good amount of value here with ace jack plus. Like you can't really be checking back ace jack that much. You can't really be checking back ace king that much here, even for a full pot size. And if we did go with a bigger size, like let's say I were to alter this and go with like a 1.25x pot size, like we would probably start to see that the value bet region still stays relatively consistent. Like we're not going to see it like alter massively. Yeah. So we go 1.25x pot. Like we're still betting a lot of ace jack. We're still betting most ace king. Some of the ace king of clubs starts to check now, but we just can't really like reduce our value bets to only 2 pair plus on the flop basically.
It was really interesting to see that king queen with the king of hearts was 100% check, and I think this is where I struggle mostly with my game, because I think of the king of hearts as like, oh well, this is my safety card. Like if another heart comes on the turn, it's a lot easier for me to turn my hand into a bluff because I'm blocking the nuts.
But that's why you're allowed to check, right?
Yeah,
because it is your
exactly
safety card,
right? Like,
because any heart that peels off, you just always can continue.
Like a hand like that's not going to be able to get a ton of value, but it's never going to have to fold the turn because.
Hold on, so real quick, explain that again, Connie, because I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
So basically, you said the king of hearts is your safety card, right?
Right, but I was thinking it more as like, okay, this is a card that I can be aggressive with.
No, because like you have middle pair also. So like you have some value in your hand. So it just allows you can check and like your hand is protected. Any heart that comes on the turn, you can call.
Yeah, you want to see. I think you're like I want to be aggressive, but this is like the middle part of your range.
Yeah.
Right. It's not the bottom part.
So it's
right, if you had like king jack or well, no, actually still pretty good, but like. Even like a king.
I have a hand that's ahead sometimes.
King six or something. Yeah, I guess you can't have king six off. But
you're
like
not ahead sometimes. You're ahead a lot of the time.
You're ahead a lot of the time, right? So like this is a middling portion of your range. So you don't want to like just start like loading the middle portion of your range into your bluffs.
Right. I think this is a really good way of displaying it because you're not wrong that the king of hearts is a meaningful card. It's just that because you already have second pair, you don't really need to bet with it. So what I can do here is I can show like, if we have an offsuit hand and I filter for offsuit hands, including a heart, you can see that our betting frequency has gone slightly up when we have a heart. But in particular, the king jack, king 10, jack 10 that has a heart is basically pure bet, right? Like all of this stuff, it's clear that having a heart, even having a heart in a pocket pair is really powerful here, right? Because it just gives us additional fold equity, additional ability to bluff on the later streets. It cleans up our outs. So having a heart is great, and you're not wrong about that. But when we have the king queen and we already have second pair, or it's similar to having pocket kings. Like you don't need to turn this hand into a bluff. It's too strong.
Yeah, find your hands that are much worse that contain the king of hearts. That's the ones you want to be aggressive.
Okay. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you don't really need to be turning second pair into a bluff. Now, one other thing that I wanted to do here is to take a look at a few other board textures and sort of see where some of these other big bets might come in spots that people don't necessarily expect. Because I think that people have a little bit of a flawed assumption about what some of the big bet boards might be. Like particularly the ace king X and ace queen X, I think people kind of have an understanding of what kinds of spots are good for big bets because, the big blind can't have ace king or ace queen a lot, but there's a lot of other boards that are good for big bets too. So if we actually, let me put Landon on the spot a little bit.
Sure. Yes.
Tell me a board that you think might be a good big bet board in this formation, cut off big blind.
Ace Jack 5 flush draw. Like the
Okay.
Ace Broadway X.
But that's a
flush
little too similar to this one. So
Yeah.
let's,
big bet board. You can probably go lower to like 10-9 deuce.
yeah, that's the
10-9
kind
deuce rainbow.
That's the kind I was thinking. Yeah. So like something like a 10-9 deuce rainbow. Let's take a look at what it wants to do there.
Are all
10-5 deuce.
Are all two Broadway X boards big bet boards for the most part?
No, depends on the side card.
Yeah.
Okay. So this one it has a 2/3 size, so it's not going huge here.
Sure.
But if we look at the 2/3 and we kind of take trying to get a sense of what hands it's using as the value bet region. For some reason, it's taking its time. There we go. We're going to see probably again that the value bet region is a lot wider than just some of those really strong hands. We've got like stuff like Queen 10. It's betting at a pretty high rate here. Even if we look at good hands, like we've got little bits of 9x that are actually betting, like 9x that unblocks all the draws is betting at some frequency. Ace 9 is betting pure. So, we can certainly, even with a 2/3 size here, like we can go relatively wide for value. And even hands like betting like Ace Jack here is kind of a value bet because you're getting peeled by a lot of King Jack and Queen Jack and Jack 8. So like it's closer to a value bet than a bluff right there.
Yeah,
so,
10-9 deuce a little bit too connected with the offsuit Broadway. So it's probably gonna be like 9-5 deuce.
Yeah. The one that always comes up in the MTT spots I look at is like 10-7-4. Let's see how that one.
Like double connected towards draws.
Yeah, so let's see how this one looks. Oh, this one's only a 40% board in this kind of range formation. So
It just depends on the big blind defense.
Yeah,
Where
I
like in
guess that's
MTTs,
true,
there's
yeah.
so much wider and have so much more gutters.
right. Let's try the 10-5 deuce. Maybe
10-5 deuce, 9-5 deuce. 10-5 deuce, like no real draws besides like low wheels.
No, this is 2/3.
But it looks like just like most of the sizes that caps out here is like 67.
Yeah, I would guess that's probably just a product of the fact that the big blind, when we're in a high rate, like micro stakes kind of environment, the big blind's probably forced to defend relatively tight, which means there are not going to be too many spots where the in position player has like a massive nut advantage. What if we go 9-6 deuce? Maybe changing a 10 to a 9 will help. But the general idea here is that the big bet boards, this is 2/3 as well.
Yeah, it just caps out at 67.
Right. They're going to be boards where in position has a lot of nut hands that the big blind doesn't have, right? So if we look at just that's the big blind's range on the left. We don't need to focus on that. But if we go on the right here and this is weird. This is a different kind of a range setup. I wanted to look at the, okay, that's weird. I don't know where the range breakdown has gone here. That's fine. I guess we're just, okay, that's it. That's fine. Never mind. So yeah, this is a board where in position has quite a big nut advantage here, 17% to about 4% in that best hands region. But it's going to be, it's not going to be that significant considering that if you look at the very top of it, like if we go here and we go, so like the 90 to 100% equity hands, which are basically the sets here, the thing that moderates this spot and causes the sizing to be capped at about 2/3 is the fact that the big blind can have a set slightly more often than the cutoff can here. So even though the cutoff has the big advantage in the overpair region and in the 9x region, like this kind of area here, the sets are with the big blind. So that's going to mean that they don't get to just shovel in and overbet.
Yeah, it's just going to be the difference between the in position player having hands like 2-pair plus being like ace queen, ace king, ace, not even ace jack, right? Because you'll probably see like ace jack 5 might be like an overbet board, but might not be just because cutoff or big blind also has ace jack off. So we have to be a little bit more careful, but ace queen off is going to probably 3-bet near pure.
Yeah, so ace jack 5 is a full pot board. Right. So we're going a little bigger with our ceiling of betting there. And this is because you can see big blind has nothing that's 90% plus. And the in position player has the advantage in all of these top 4 categories, even the 60 to 70% region. So they're just pushing a really big nut advantage here on ace jack 5. And even if you changed it to like ace 9-5, I think this would probably change a fair amount here. Probably wouldn't become a big bet board anymore because now we go all the way down to like a 25% size, right? And it's because these top regions, they're a little bit more competitive. And then in this area here, the 70 to 80%, the big blind actually has the advantage. So it's just a very different setup of ranges in this spot. Yeah. So big bet boards, definitely one that I think some people get a little bit wrong, but also one that I think there's a lot of opportunity to find exploits and kind of figure out ways that the player pool is gonna make mistakes in those spots.
And the gentleman that submitted this hand actually checked back. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. So there was a check back on the flop. Let me bring up the original flop that we were looking at, which was ace, queen, deuce. So they said they were going to have a bet 75 strategy. So we're going to go back to looking at the bet 75. And the reason for that is because if you have a bet 75 compared to a bet 100, it's going to change the checking range. So even though you do have, even though in the spot that we're looking at, they did not check, they did not bet, we still have to adapt what bet sizing they would have used because it's going to change the checking range. So now we put the king of hearts turn up there, and they faced a bet size of about 2/3 pot, I believe, here, which is kind of interesting because it's not really one that appears much in theory. We've got a quarter pot bet with a sort of thin value blockery kind of range, and then we've got a big bet. So I'm just going to kind of merge these bet sizes into one 2/3 pot bet and see what we end up with. Now, the tricky thing about this turn card is obviously we turn 2-pair, but we turn 2-pair in a spot where 2-pair is a bit of an awkward hand to have when there's so many flushes and stuff like that out there. So I'm actually curious whether this hand is going to raise the turn with, wow, okay, that's a big raise size. So there's no raising at all there. Wow, that's interesting. So yeah, so it wants to basically just never raise here, even with some of the flush portion of range. I would assume just because we are in a position where we're kind of capped overall and we need to just call with some pretty strong hands in order to protect that range.
Is it also because the size that's chosen here?
Yeah, I think once you start to get to the point where you see sizings that are unexpected in the game tree. So like the solver wanted to use quarter pot or full pot on the turn, and instead villain chose 2/3. Like once you see that, you definitely start to get into territory where everything gets a bit weird, and you start to see some weird outputs.
I think main issue here for imposition is we have very little, if not zero flushes, but very low, where big blind is concentrated towards having a lot of them from defending.
Yeah, exactly. We have only 2.6% flushes here. There's only a few of them. So it's just
because really, your flush draws are going to just be betting the flop
at a pretty high rate. Yeah,
well, it's also just always, because like look at the cards on the board. How do we have flushes from the cutoff?
Yeah, exactly.
We have very few. So just because we have flushes sometimes doesn't mean we're allowed to raise.
Right. We have a royal.
Sure.
we do have Jack 10 of hearts.
Well, I guess we actually don't because that bet's flopping pure.
Yeah, that's true.
So we actually never have a royal here. Whereas I guess villain can have a royal. Let's see how often villain has a royal.
Not often, right? Because they're going to 3-bet pre sometimes.
Well, 0.3%. So it's not nothing, but it's not a lot.
Yeah. There's a high hand
I think
bonus
versus cutoff, all your suited broadways are almost pure 3-bets, right? Or is that versus button?
Mostly versus button. Cutoff, you can be a little bit more selective, I imagine. Like you can see here from, you go back to big blind range, right?
Yeah.
Like Queen 10, Queen Jack isn't really like 3-betting. King 10, King Jack is a little bit. But versus button, I think you 3-bet more.
Yeah, and I think also with this really high rake, it seems to go a little bit more polo with the 3-bet. Like I think a lot of this stuff down here is going to mix folds and 3-bets occasionally. Like some of the suited connector stuff is going to mix some 3-bets, but this stuff is not going to do as much of it, I guess, with high rake. But interesting. So we do face the 2/3, and the sim wants to have no raises. So this is where it kind of gets weird because we obviously have to account for the fact that villain did raise in this spot. I don't imagine that we're going to be losing a ton by raising with king queen here, but we might be losing a little bit. Let's take a look at the EV of the different options. So king queen of diamonds, which is what villain hero actually had. Call is 2.41, big blinds in EV, and raise is 1.92. So we're losing about half a big blind by raising.
What's raising really accomplish here?
Yeah, I mean, the tricky part of this is theoretically you're supposed to get value. Well, if you're going to raise, the idea is to get value from stuff like
pair plus heart,
ace-x with a heart, things like that.
Yeah.
But I think part of the problem is that the ace-x with a heart, if villain has that, it's not going to be like there's not a lot of it, right? Like there's really only a little bit of these ace-x that's actually defending pre-flop, and then obviously the stronger ace-x with a heart is maybe going to 3-bet sometimes pre-flop, but also maybe occasionally.
The weaker hearts might fold.
Yeah, maybe check raising flop at some rate. Like, I think there's just, it's kind of weird because villain's range on turn with a 2/3 size is not supposed to be that polarized, but it actually kind of is. Like, if you look at the way that this, here's one thing I like to do with Wizard. Let me show you. This, you can do, if you press B, you can go into like drawing mode and you can kind of draw like a little curve like that, right? So
that's cool.
Yeah, if you look at that curve that looks like this, like this V pointing left, that's representative of a polarized range. If it was a much more linear range, it would look a little bit more like this, right? It would just kind of go down diagonally like that. And if it was a more merged range, it would look like that, because the middle hands would be betting a bit more.
Yeah.
So this polar range just kind of signifies villain's going to have a certain amount of flushes here, and then obviously some bluffs, but not like a massive portion of bluffs that can actually call the raise. Like they don't really have the ability to call the raise with like a pocket pair with a heart here. So
you kind of get yourself in a situation where when you raise, you better calls and worse folds.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time that is what happens. Like if you look at what the theoretical response to the raise is, villain's calling range is going to include like a certain amount of ace X, sure, but a lot of better two pairs, like ace deuce is in there. There's obviously some ace jack and some ace 10 with a heart, or actually all the ace 10 and things like that. But there's also all the jack 10, and there's all the low flushes and set of deuces that you obviously lose to. So it looks like the turn raise is actually a little bit thin. Maybe this is one that warrants the no graphic from the wizard. I don't know. I think the flop check is pretty wizard approved, but I think that this one is maybe
daddy.
a no. Yeah, this is a reject me daddy.
Well, the issue, the issue
I'm
here,
saying reject me daddy is great. Go on, Landon.
the issue here with the king queen two pair is that when you do get called, your equity cannot necessarily be collected when like river deuce comes off, heart comes off, all the things that continue most of the time. A jack can still make things really bad. So when you do get floated on, sometimes you get value, but then on river you can still lose when in like a check node, right? River deuce check, you lose to ace 10.
Right. Yeah,
Not
I think
great.
that's part of the issue here.
While having zero flushes or near zero flushes in range.
If I lock the out of position villain and then lock hero into raising a little bit more often, we can start to get a sense of what happens on the river. The river, I think, was an offsuit 5, if I'm remembering rightly. I don't have the hand details to hand in front of me, but I think that's what it was.
5 of spades.
Yeah, 5 of spades. Okay, cool. So we're going to up hero's raising frequency a little bit. It looks like if we do force hero to raise at some rate, king queen is one of the first hands that jumps into the range. So at least on some level, it's not like a really bad selection of hands there. But let's say we give them like a 15% raising frequency there or something like that. And we just lock all of that, just so that we can get to the river with some kind of a range that we can actually evaluate.
It is kind of one of those hands that the raise functions as protection on turn, where even if they are bluffing and have not nothing, but like some one hard hands still have to fold, and then some dust hands have to fold, and you don't have to bluff catch on hearts.
Yeah, this is where it gets kind of weird, right? Because now villain is supposed to actually just 3-bet like always when we.
Yeah, because they have flushes and we don't.
Right, exactly. Like they're supposed to just never not 3-bet. So like now I just kind of have to lock them into a certain kind of a continuing range. Maybe we just go to the strategy and then we go filters and we just have them always call everything that is better than a certain strength. Second pair. I guess if they bet the turn with some kind of king jack or whatever, they're probably going to call. And then we probably go with fold with all the third pair, low pair, and no made hand. And then maybe any kind of combo draw, like let's just say any flush draw they bet the turn with, they're going to, oh wait, actually that's not going to be the case, is it? They're definitely not going to just like bet call pocket threes with a heart on that turn. That's kind of terrible. So we'll just get rid of all that.
Just do better instead.
Yeah, right. This is probably going to be a fair approximation of where we're going to end up here. So villain calls, and then the river was the 5 of spades. This might be a really weird river. It might want villain to jam. Yeah, it like wants them to jam every single hand on the river. Because they just have such a range advantage at this point. Like that's so crazy. Let's just force them to check. If we force them to check,
we have to check back.
Yeah, we're probably just going to check back everything. Yeah, we're checking back 90%.
They're jamming range, right?
98%.
If we reopen, they're just going to pile it.
Yeah, exactly. So this is where theory land becomes, it gets a little out of hand, right? When you start to, even just the fact that villain took that 2/3 pot line on the turn, just immediately put us in this unknown territory. And it definitely makes the rest of the hand pretty complicated. So I don't think hero made any like massive punts here necessarily, but I do feel like we probably just want to recognize that villain actually has quite a lot of flushes on the turn here, and it becomes a little bit tricky for us to raise 2 pair as a result. It probably just becomes a hand that just calls turn, calls every single river
It just
card.
becomes one of your best
Did we
bluff
already
catchers,
see
right?
what the flush disparity was between ranges or no?
On
turn.
On the turn?
Yeah.
Let's
we
go
have
back.
2.6%. They probably have
Let's
8
go
to
back
10.
to the turn and let's go ranges, and then we'll go hands. So they have 7.3%, 7.3% flushes, 0.3% straight flush, and we have only 2.6. So they have 3 times as many flushes as we do, basically.
Around 8.
Yeah, that's basically what's creating this disparity here. They also have more straights than we do, so
and,
that's
and sets. Or no,
no, sets is
we just have all the sets.
Yeah, they have 1%. We have 2.3, but
Yeah,
it's because we have kings a lot of the time.
Yeah, we just pure check back flop with kings.
Right. Yeah. So I think the flush disparity here is what's kind of preventing us from raising 2 pair.
5-card hands are scary.
Yeah, exactly. When I first saw this hand, I didn't really think that raising turn was that bad, but I think what it kind of comes down to really is that villains, like if we had faced the strategy where they have a small bet and a big bet, as opposed to one catch-all bet, then raising versus the small bet might have been okay, because the small bet would probably be pretty deep, pretty like heavy on ace X. But when we face 2/3 and their range is like some ace X in there, but like it's a lot of flushes and a lot of straights, like now it just becomes a bit trickier to actually raise, I guess.
This is kind of the good thing about playing one-sizing strategies, where you bucket all of your hands into one versus playing 2 sometimes.
Yeah.
Where when you have the one-sizing strat, you can't really tell if they either have like a weak ace X or a 5-card hand. But if you're playing 2 strategies of like a block and then like maybe a B75, it's a lot harder to protect both ranges as a human.
Yeah, that I think honestly is one of the hardest parts of having a split range strategy or having a 2-sizing strat in most spots. It's understanding which strong, because most of the strong hands are going to want to go in the big size, but a lot of the strong hands have to go into the small size as well, or at least some of them do, because you can't have a small size that's just never strong, right? So understanding which hands which combos you're supposed to put into the small size, depending on the exact nature of the board texture, it's really tough. And then you also have to make sure that when stuff happens, like you bet small, you get raised, you check the river, now you have to like defend your small bet call range in a way where, you know, a lot of your good bluff catchers might have gone into the bigger size because they were value betting on the turn. And so now everything gets thrown out of whack because you have 2 ranges to think about, and you have to think about the distribution of bluff catchers in both of them. So I personally am just a big fan of single size strategies, unless you're on the river. I think even when you're on the river, 2-sizing strategies in some spots is pretty difficult to pull off. And for the most part, especially if you're playing tournaments, I think you can usually capture the vast majority of the EV that's available with 1-sizing. But I know some of the tougher games that you've played in, Landon, I'm sure there's probably at least some spots where it's kind of necessary to practice the 2-size strategy.
Yeah, depending on board texture, and most of the times you're going to have 2 sizes where the hand classes that fit block to either block bluff catch versus potentially overbet themselves are just something that you have to get used to over time. Where it's like, okay, this hand's too good to block call, so instead I have to overbet to get the value from it, and then this hand is too weak to overbet because getting called is too tough, so now it goes into the block call.
Right, yeah, and it's kind of funny because it can sometimes be surprising how simple some of the principles are there, in that a lot of the time it really is as straightforward as like all of your absolute best hands are going to want to go into the overbet size, or they're not going to want to block because they don't get raised enough in certain spots. But then there are other spots where it becomes super complicated, and some of the really micro level card removal factors, kind of like we're seeing in this spot actually, like the card removal stuff is pretty important here, because having, let's say, any hand with like the jack of hearts in it fundamentally changes your opponent's range. So there's a lot of spots where you kind of have to really be very conscious of how important the suits are, how important specific cards are. And there are plenty of boards that get really tough to play for a 2-sizing strategy as a result.
Yeah, the efficiency of trying to choose combos based off of the percentage of range that can exist for opponent is going to be tougher depending on the board states. Sometimes it's easier. Yeah. Sometimes it's harder. Right? When like there's a spot where the opener can have ace X with a flush draw, it's like, okay, they can have a lot more flushes. But then like ace of hearts, queen of hearts, king of hearts, it's like, well, you're running out of them pretty fast.
Yeah, exactly. And those spots where you're kind of on an island, they're obviously spots where you're going to be, no matter who you are, you're going to be much more mistake prone. So those are the ones we want to make sure that we tackle in the right kind of way.
Tough game.
It is a tough
full
game.
Flop and you have plus EV spots.
Yeah, you see a lot of 2-sizing strategies at the duel, Brian?
Yeah, no. Yeah, they bet small when they're bluffing and they bet big when they have it.
That's the two sizing strategy from the 2-3 streets, right? It's like if they bet small, they don't have it. When they bet small, they have one pair. They bet big, they have two pair. You know,
Big hand, big bet.
yeah. There's like a sliding scale of how big their hand is depending on how big they bet. You know,
Right.
So what do you think overall? How did our submission play this hand?
Overall, I would. Oh man. I think we have to.
Does he get a passing grade?
I'm gonna give him a
I think.
C.
Yeah, I think I would give it a C because.
Holy shit, that's like an A where I'm from, bro.
I think I would give it a C because I understand the thinking.
C's
and
get degrees.
Yeah,
You dig?
And I get. I don't think there was any like massive punt anywhere. I just think it's pretty thin, and I think that on top of that, the biggest issue or the biggest thing that you have to be conscious of is if you're B75 on the flop, like you can't just only have two pair when you value bet because you're just gonna miss so much value. Like there's so much one pair that just has to like go 3 streets when it bricks off. You know.
All right, fam.
Yeah.
If you guys don't know this already, head on over to our Discord or add us on Twitter. You're in the muck submission today. Let us talk about what you're doing out there.
That's good.
That's right.
There's a lot of. I'm always surprised by how many of our listeners spend so much time in the muck. I feel bad for them.
Yeah.
That's a lot of muck time.
I
And,
mean, shit.
Shout out to GTO Wizard for sponsoring our In the
Yes.
Muck segment. You can
Absolutely.
hit #Wizard in the chat and sign up for a GTO Wizard subscription.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a self plug as well. I have a couple of videos coming out for Wizard soon as well.
I love
which
your
hopefully-
videos, dude. I watch them
Thank
all
you.
the time.
Yo,
They're
this
great.
guy's fucking moonlighting over here?
He does this
Oh
guy.
my God.
Of course.
This guy's
He's everywhere,
moonlighting.
man.
He's working for
I've been-
GTO Wiz, working here.
I've been doing this for a year.
Yeah.
That shows how much attention you pay.
No,
Oh, we already
GTO
knew
Wizard
that.
has a lot of
actually
really
saw-
good videos on their YouTube channel
I've
for
actually-
free. For free.
I've actually
yeah.
watched all your GTO Wizard
There
videos.
you go. I knew
Of course you
that.
did.
I knew you couldn't miss my content.
I just had to talk my shit, you know?
There you go. But yeah, I'm working on. Well, actually, I have recorded these Wizard videos, and they're gonna probably go out soon. It's basically two short videos about the theoretical kind of background behind hero calling and hero folding. Like, in what spots are we gonna make really big call offs, and in what spots are we gonna make really big folds?
Just pay.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that we've been talking so much about just pay, and I'm
Yeah.
out here making videos about hero folding, right?
But they're also hero calling.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very important to have at least a grasp on what the theory is behind these
So
spots. 'cause
you
just
already
can't-
recorded this, so
Yes,
it's in
it's
post-production.
in post-production now. So
Awesome.
those videos will be out for Wizard soon. But
Be looking
there's
forward to that.
plenty more to come in the pipeline. And I guess in terms of content for us, like closer to home, I'm working on some more multi-way stuff for future course. So
Yes.
that one
Always
should
need
be-
more
We
multi-way,
need multi-way
because-
stuff because every hand I play is multi-way.
Everybody loves the multi-way.
There
Everybody's
is
like,
no heads-up fucking pots in live poker.
Right. No,
Yeah.
it really is true. It's so like it's funny because like you want to do like an in the muck segment, you know, and I try to get a hand from playing live, and it's just like, well, I'm not gonna like plug it into the solver because
Right.
it's like okay, 5-way limp, and then I raise, and then everyone calls, and
yeah.
okay, there's not a solve for that yet.
Well, yeah. The interesting part is there actually is in that even though obviously limping is you can't like solve for the
pimping.
optimal limping ranges because
Right.
people are not doing that, but there is a solver. I don't want to like pretend that I'm like an ambassador for these guys, but there's a solver
Right.
called Rocket Solver that is pretty new, and I've been really surprised and impressed by the way it can do like 6-way, 7-way stuff. Like it can do
Interesting.
bomb pots, like shit like that. So.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I've
mean
been running a
that
bunch of sims
obviously
with that.
that's the evolution, right? Because
Yeah.
like it's the more the solvers evolve, then obviously the more complicated solves it's going to be able to do, like multi-ways.
Yeah,
and-
I mean, it's funny. I've been running some of these 6-way sims, and it takes a lot of like messing around with the game tree to even make the game tree small enough that a 64 gigabyte RAM computer can run the sim.
That's-
Like my
yeah.
computer is pretty good. Like
I
I
was
say,
gonna say,
64
64 is
gigs of
pretty-
RAM.
yeah.
Like I run a lot of sims, but making the 6-way game tree fit like a practical solver thing, like
Yeah.
it's tough. So these sims are complicated. But the fun part of it has been getting to see like when everybody's ranges are just dust and they're super wide and really weak, like you actually get to play maybe a little bit more aggressively than you would think in some spots. So it's been really fun to run some of these sims, and I'm probably gonna.
That's part of the course you're working on.
Most likely, yeah. I'm running a bunch of sims, and I'm gonna see kind of where we end up once I've run enough of them that I feel like I can build some principles.
I can't wait for it.
Yeah, it should be fun. It's going to be, I would think that my next course will probably be like April or something like that prior to WSOP, so that we can, get all my content cleared away, and then I can go hopefully win some bracelets.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Shout out to our boy Efro. He said, I submitted months ago, and it took me like an hour to write it. And yet, nothing. I'm sorry, Efro. You have been shadow banned by our boy, Matt Berkey. I don't know what to tell you, man. He won't say hi to you in the hallways. I mean, I'm sorry, man.
Go hit him up on Twitter. I heard he's been putting out some banger tweets lately.
I like that.
Everybody, thank you for rocking with us. Like, subscribe, write something in the comments. Did you bring Berkey a pair of extra medium underpants? I don't know. All right, we'll be back tomorrow at noon. Holla.
See ya.
Peace. Squad.